Welcome to the program Spiritism Inspiring Lives, where we are all souls in evolution, reflecting about our own spirituality as immortal beings as we all are. And today themes is the hidden transmission of thought. Are we aware that we are thinking beings? Are we conscious of what we think or not? And how can we develop self-awareness so that we become aware of our thoughts? Do our thoughts impact our lives, our well-being, or not? These are some questions that we hope to be answering throughout our reflections in this short period that we are together here today. And as I mentioned before, we are immortal beings, souls in evolution, essentially beings of goodness, but we still are quite unconscious. A lot of us as humanity may not be conscious that we are thinking beings. We may not be aware of what we think, and yet our thinking impacts our health, mentally, emotionally, biologically, and spiritually. So within Spiritism, we tend to reflect a lot about the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, the French educator. The Spirit's book is a book of question and answers, which has been given by the Enlightened Spirits to the humanity. We can find a lot of references aiming to help to develop ourselves as thinking beings, learning that we can change our thoughts, that we can elaborate new ways of addressing ourselves or experiences. And for us to start our reflections, I will point on the Spirit's book, question 89.8. I quote, "Isn't thought the soul itself moving from one place to another?" Answer: when a thought is in a place, the soul is there too, since it is the soul that does the thinking, though thought is one of its attributes. I find this question so clever, so important. Isn't thought the soul itself moving from one place to another? And I repeat, when the thought is in a place, the soul is there too. Meaning what I just said, that we are thinking beings. For us who are incarnated, that is, with a physical body, while we are going through this incarnation, we are three-dimensional beings, that is, a spirit, perispirit or astral body, and the physical body. Now, for us to navigate around and interact with the different experiences in order to grow, in order to evolve, in order to spiritualize ourselves, we still have the physical body. So wherever we are, the soul is there as a spirit, as we are. But not only where the physical body takes us, because where the thought is, the spirit is there. And it's fascinating to understand that through thought, we can interact with beings from the different planets, from the different dimensions, the material dimension, the physical one where we are, and also the spiritual dimension. Where the thought is, the soul is there too. So there are a lot of reflections that come from this understanding. Our thought does not have limits. The limits is merely down to our, let's say, still primitive state of evolution or immaturity, but that will vanish gradually, because we are all in the pathway of evolving, of growing, of expanding our consciousness. And we can start or continue right now if we are choosing to do so. It's fundamental that we learn to think for ourselves. It's fundamental that we understand what we are thinking. And it's fundamental for us to address every limited, negative irrational belief systems that perhaps we may have, transforming them, re-editing them, those belief systems that correspond to the universal natural laws that guides us all. And in that way, we are harmonizing ourselves more and also communicating with each other, incarnating all of those in spirit, because we all are communicating with beings from the spiritual world. If we believe in that, if we are conscious on that or not, that is completely irrelevant. Thought is a communication with the spirit on earth, beyond it. Fascinating. As we carry on here in our reflections, still in the Spirit's book now, question 419, I quote, why is it that the same idea, a discovery, for example, arises at the same time in many places? We have already stated that during sleep, spirits communicate with one another. Well then, when the body awakens, the spirit resembles what it has learned, and the person thinks he or she has invented it. Thus, many may seem to have discovered the same thing at the same time. When you say that an idea is floating around, you employ figures of speech that is more precise than you think, without even suspecting it. Everyone has contributed towards developing it. My dear friends, it's interesting, isn't it? Sometimes we may be speaking with friends or family members or in a workplace, and we realize that I'm thinking something and the other is speaking the same line of thought. There is nothing that happens for no reason. And here we learn, through our thought, we communicate with the universe. And others may be in the same line of thought as we are, or others may be capable of reading our thoughts. And sometimes it is unconscious, merely because we may have the same tendencies, the same references. And the other aspect in this question is fundamental, that when we go to sleep, the physical body sleeps, but not the soul. The soul is aware, is awake, engaging with different experiences according to their inner world. And sometimes we come back once we wake up in the morning with a very strong idea, with a very strong thought. And here we are reminded. Quite often we have been in communication with other spirits, relating with them. And if necessary and convenient, we will reminded, we will have it very clear in our minds. And sometimes it's also that we may be dealing with some experiences on earth while we are in the flesh, while we are in the experience of the emancipation of the soul through the sleeping phase. We may also process that, or maybe concerned about it. Oh my God, how I do sort out this problem, whatever, and I may wake up tired or anxious. But the reality is that we are our thoughts. This is why it's so fundamental and so important for us to get to know our thoughts, our belief systems. Everything that is negative in our psyche actually starts with negative thoughts that we as souls, as a spirit, are nourishing them. And guess what? If they are negative, they intoxicate us. And yet we are communicating with other ill souls too, other disturbed spirit too. If they are more rational, more constructive, we are also connecting with other souls, healthier ones, because we are choosing to develop our thoughts from a rational perspective, considering the immortality of the soul. That will change a lot the way that we engage with our experiences, within our families, within our relationships, within our workplace, within even what we say problems. But in reality, they are experiences that we choose to attract in order to expand consciousness. change the way that we think, learn to be more creative, understand that we have the capacity to choose to think in a different way. We do not need to be enslaved by our old negative, vicious thoughts, because they can also communicate through the physical body, through the illness. So it's very important to get to know who we are mentally, as it is important also to check if what we are thinking, what we are holding in terms of belief systems, if that is helping us to promote high self-esteem, inner confidence, security, all the thoughts that corresponds to the natural law in the universe, which is summarized in love, in goodness, in forgiveness, in tolerance, in brotherhood, in fraternity, in solidarity, in cooperation. All those thoughts help us to heal ourselves, to fortify our psychic, to balance ourselves. As we carry on here then, following still our reflections, question 419 in the Spirit's book, part of the note, I quote, "In this way, our spirit itself often unknowingly reveals the object of our waking preoccupations to other spirits." This is what I just mentioned. So when we are very concerned about certain experiences while we are awake, when the body goes to sleep, bear in mind that the soul does not sleep, we may be communicating these concerns with other spirits, with other friends. Friends does not necessarily mean that we are good friends, but means in the same length of communication, or the same length of our emotions, or the same length of our interests. And we also may bring that back. Or if we are really, let's say, preparing ourselves when we go to sleep as souls, and understand that existence continues while the body is resting and sleeping, but the soul is free, we may choose to connect with our spiritual benefactors. We all have them, and communicate with them. So that will help me to understand better that situation that I'm facing as a learner on earth. And we may come back once we wake up with more clarity. When we choose to connect with the good spirits, that is an option, and it's down to us, because the free will is always respected by any one of us. And then moving on is still in the question 420, and I quote, "Can spirits communicate with one another when the body is completely awake?" A spirit is not enclosed in its body as it if were in a box. It radiates all around in every direction. Hence, it can communicate with other spirits even in the waking state, although it does so with more difficulty. This is another very important question. Can spirits communicate with one another when the body is completely awake? Sometimes it's possible, yes. We are not, because when we think about the physical body, so how can a thought communicate beyond it? From a more materialistic perspective, that sounds impossible, because we perceive ourselves through our material body, which is the physical body. But from a transcendental perspective, transpersonal perspective of analyzing ourselves, that is completely possible. Because although we are communicating through the physical body, the spirit is not in a box. Our thoughts are radiations. They go beyond the physical body. So much so that some people can read what we are thinking. Those who are more sensible to it. Incarnates and disincarnates. We can communicate through our thinking with people, with beings on the other side of the ocean, in different countries, in different dimensions, even when we are in the physical body and not sleeping. The power of the thought transcends quite often our understanding that we carry within. But it is important to see that this communication can go either towards the inferior spirits or the superior spirits. And surely the aim to promote ourselves is to observe our thinking, which quite often when we are negative, when we are depressed, when we are hating others, when we are full of vengeance, when we are just thinking about negative about other people, we are very intoxicated through our thoughts. They are ill thoughts. And we then can choose to actualize that. We do have the power within, although it requires a bit of work, a bit of effort, but it is possible for us to do that. And there is the power within that we free ourselves from ourselves when we are temporarily very down through our negative mentality. We choose on a daily basis. It's almost like a proposal of self-education. And we can do that in case we choose to. It's very important. And as we carry on in question 421 in the Spirit's book, and I quote, "Why do two perfectly awake persons sometimes have the same thought at exactly the same time? They are two attuned spirits who communicate with each other and read each other's thought when they are not asleep." That is fantastic. Surely we want to communicate towards what is healthy, what promotes health on our mental level, emotional level, physiological level, and also spiritual level. So it's important that sometimes we may be in different countries and suddenly we may communicate. "Oh, I have been thinking about you, blah, 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 blah." And the other person says, "Oh my God, that is exactly what was going on in my mind now." And here we have the answer, what is happening. They are two attuned spirits. And sometimes it may be in the same family. Sometimes it is in the workplace that we find, "Oh, I'm thinking that." It's because we are in the same length of thought. The secret here is to be attentive, that we may not choose, because we are constantly choosing what we think, choose to tune into lower references, because that will be a problem for us. As our thoughts are energy, we will be dealing with negative energy hanging around us and we intoxicate ourselves with. But when we realize that our negative thoughts emerge to the conscious level and we choose to re-educate those thoughts, the meaning changing it, towards goodness, brotherhood, towards a vision of the immortality of souls, that we are all brothers and sisters in humanity. Paying attention when the shortcomings of others emerge, that we take responsibility for our own and change that. In that way, we are promoting, in other words, we are healing ourselves using the faculty of our thoughts, thinking rationally based on the essence of ourselves. Moving forward, then, we carry on within the note on question 421. The note is much huger than is here, but it's just part of the note, and I quote, "When spirits meet, there is sometimes a communication of thought that enables two people to see and understand each other without the need for verbal language. They may be said to speak the language of spirits." The language of the spirits in the universe is the thought. Can you see how far we can be communicating with other beings, even spirits from different existences who are alive or have their journeys? It's important to observe so that we may nourish ourselves with constructive belief systems, because that will bring well-being in all times in our existences, wherever we are and with who we are. So that is fundamental. If you move forward in our reflections in the question 459, I quote, "Do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and actions?" Much more than you imagine. They influence so much an extent that normally it is they who guide you. Do we have that idea? Do we have that knowledge? Do spirits have any influence on our thoughts and actions? Bear in mind, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are all immortal beings. We are souls in evolution. We are spirits. We will never die. The physical body dies, but we carry on and we communicate. Now, when the answer is much more than you imagine, so much so that they are the ones who guide us, the question is, who is guiding me through my thoughts? Who is directing my thoughts, and in which direction? With my permission. Because they only can guide us or influence us through our permission. So again, I go back with the relevant analysis that we become conscious or more conscious that negative, destructive belief system causes more and more disturbance within our psychic and also attracts more and more ill-minded spirits. While once we realize our negativity, understand that there is self-destruction, and we choose to change that, put in the effort into, because we bring the ability innate within ourselves to actualize our thoughts, we are actually empowering ourselves. And also in the same way, tuning into the good beings, the good spirits, the dear friends or the spiritual guides who are inspiring us through our thoughts in order for us to carry on healing us, growing, learning to be humble, learning to be charitable, learning to be cooperating for good causes wherever we are. Is important if we give at least some minutes on a daily basis to ourselves to analyze what was or I am thinking most of the time throughout this day. Are my thoughts promoting well-being, or are my thoughts disturbing myself? Because our thoughts is the way that we are dialoguing, communicating with ourselves. It's fundamental to discipline our minds. Learn to focus. As more as we discipline our thoughts, more empowered we are and much more, let's say, stronger we become in terms of discerning what helps us and what doesn't. We all have the power within. And moving on in the question 464, I quote, how can we tell if a suggested thought comes from a good or evil spirit? Study the matter. Good spirits give only good advice. It is your responsibility to make the distinction. Quite often people may say, but how do I know which thought comes from a good or bad spirit, incarnate or disincarnate? And the enlightened beings are very objective and very direct in teaching. Study the matter. That requires for all of us to show interest in studying spirituality, understanding more mediumship, understanding about how the thoughts work in this intercommunication, understanding the identity of a spirits, starting with ourselves, to become aware which level of thoughts are we nourishing ourselves with. Do we know when we are dealing with depression, anxiety, fear, envy, and so on and so forth? We are dealing with limited and quite often irrational thoughts. And now imagine the hidden thoughts, because all of us are constantly interconnected with other souls, with other spirits, with other minds. Surely we want to promote ourselves to inner security, that we create an inner boundary on a psychic level, that we protect ourselves in choosing to hold rational thoughts, constructive thoughts, even when we undergo challenging experiences, which is part of our existences. But we are free within to choose what we think. And what we think will feed our emotional dimension, affecting our well-being or not, affecting our integral health or not. So it is important. For us to start to distinguish, it's important to bear in mind that superior, good spirits, they will never, ever suggest negative or unfriendly thoughts to us. Never. Good beings, good spirits, they will always suggest, inspire us with thoughts, with belief systems, which are promoting us in terms of self-love, self-respect, inner power, promoting us in conquering humbleness, be more charitable, be more forgiving, be more tolerate, silence whenever is necessary in order to develop inner peace, inner harmony. And moving forward into question 465 within the Spirit's book, I quote, "For what purpose do imperfect spirits induce us to evil? To make you suffer as they themselves do." Evil spirits could be us who are incarnate. When we are envious, jealousy, full of pride and selfishness and vanity and so on and so forth, when we cannot, when we are criticizing others, when we are gossiping about other people, when we try to lie about others because we really don't like it, and we are not aware yet that we are dealing with our own shortcomings, with our own shadows. So the inferior spirits, incarnate or disincarnate, we could be one of them. We need to pay attention. We induce evil or inspire evil to others because to make you suffer. It's almost like because we are suffering within, which is true when we have this negative slandering, gossiping, and criticizing others. It's almost like an inner moral cancer that we are dealing on the psychic level. In that way, we are projecting that outwards towards those that we are communicating with. So it's fundamental that we pay attention for that and also select our thoughts. Reserve more time that we may think before we say something. That is part of self-education. That is part of learning to protect ourselves psychically. Because other spirits, incarnate or disincarnate, through their way of thinking, they can only impact us, affect us with our permission. So when I say internal boundary, it is self-protection. So I don't need to be afraid of the shadow of somebody else, incarnate or disincarnate spirits, when I enlighten my own shadows. That is self-protection. And that we can train ourselves. As we move forward in question 465a in the Spirit's book still, I quote, "Does it actually lessen their sufferings when the spirits really inspire negative thoughts and they want us or others to suffer because they are also suffering?" And the answer is no, but they do so anyway out of envy at seeing happier beings. We can even reflect, perhaps I may have this behavior because my low self-esteem, my inferior complex, my lack of self-worth, and my unwillingness to put effort into to ask for help and to promote my essence, the core of myself, where we reach our own spirituality. So we may be envy of those who know more than us, those who are better than us. But that is pointless because others have the free will and they may choose to free themselves from their own shadows and put an effort into to study more, to transform themselves, to practice virtuous aspects like forgiveness, tolerance, brotherhood, cooperation, humbleness, charity, and so on and so forth. No one can hold us back in that. So even if someone is criticizing others with this inner density of shortcomings, no one can be held back if each one of us choose to train our free will towards the universal code of happiness, of real health, when we choose to potentialize our thinking according to goodness. When I say goodness, what is good for me, for you, for everyone, everywhere, all the time. That is the universal code of goodness. It's not good only what is good for me from a selfish way. Moving on in question 465b, I quote, "What kinds of sufferings do they wish to inflict on us? Those that result from belonging to a lower order and from being far from God." So be attentive of our thoughts. Because as we mentioned previously in the first questions that we present here in our reflections, the spirits guide us much more than we think in our thoughts and actions. To the point that we may think on a daily basis, who is guiding me? What I'm thinking? Who is guiding my actions? How do I know that? Observe. Good spirits will only inspire everyone. There was forgiveness, there was tolerance, there was brotherhood, there was humbleness, there was fraternity, there was cooperation, and so on and so forth. So if we are holding different opposite ideas, thoughts, or belief systems, as I just mentioned, then it's important to raise a red flag for ourselves because we are in dangers. Could be that others are inspiring us in a negative way, but if so, they only can do that because we have the negative thoughts in our perispirit or in our unconscious memories, and we can change that. It's all about learning to empower ourselves. When we move forward into question 466 in the Spirits with a quote, why does God permit spirits to incite us to evil? That is a very interesting question, isn't it? Because God is the creator of everything and everyone. And he created everyone with love in order for us to learn to love. So why is God, the all-empowered being in the universe, allowing other beings to influence us in a negative way? Let's see what we learn here. I quote, imperfect spirits are meant as instruments for testing the faith and constancy of individuals in the practice of good. As a spirit, you must progress in the knowledge of the infinite. You experience the trials of evil in order to arrive at the good. Our mission is to place you upon the upright path. This is the mission of the good spirits. When evil influences act on you, however, it is you yourself who call to them out of your desire for evil. Little evolved spirits come to help you in evil when you have the will to commit it. However, they cannot help you if evil except when you actually desire to indulge it. That is very important when we read here. Be attentive of the inner power that we bring within, that we can isolate ourselves, protect ourselves from eventual negative interferences. We cannot avoid them. Why not? Because other souls, other spirits, they are free to think whatever they want to, so much so as we too. What we can do is to be developing our discernment, to be aware of what we are thinking, taking the responsibility of our thoughts, actualizing them when they are of low level, because that is not helping us. And in that way, we are maturing, we are growing, we are healing, we are becoming happier, we are understanding the power to change lives within ourselves. It's not because the majority of humanity still is moving within the massification concepts of life, of negativity. When we come together and then we just talk about other people's lives in a negative way, criticizing, bear in mind, we have the inner power called freedom of choice. We can choose what we think in those situations because we are not in control of other people, but we can learn to control ourselves. That is fundamental that we pay attention. And as we are coming almost like towards the end, question 466, I quote, it is thus that God leaves to our conscience the choice of the course we must follow and the freedom to surrender to either of the opposing influences acts on us. It's God's will that we as creatures develop the inner power of selecting our thoughts, of protecting our thoughts, in developing mental discipline. And bear in mind, as a summary, good thoughts promote inner harmony. Bad, negative thoughts create density, conflicts on our mental, emotional, biological level. And in order to come to end, we reflect in the question 467, I quote, can people avoid the influence of spirits who incite them to evil? Yes, because they only attach themselves to those who ask them with either desires or attract them with their thoughts. Someone will say, well, I don't want this bad spirit with me. I don't want this obsessor to be influencing me. Well, then we need to bring the focus back to us and learn to observe, because the cause of attraction of inferior soul, inferior spirit, lies within us. So it's important that we can avoid the communication, the suggestions, the interferences of inferior souls in relation to us, as long as we choose to eradicate the causes of our own inferiority, of our own envy, jealousy, of our own tendency of gossiping, slandering, of criticizing other people. That is our problem. And when we choose, but Jung said, in light our own shadows, then we are on the right track. Then we still can see, hear that other people may be gossiping about us or criticizing, but we are no longer affected by it, because we are eradicating from within our own negativity, our own shadows, enlightening them. It's not criticizing ourselves, it is reintegrating. Bear in mind that we all have free will. We can all choose to learn to think in a different way and learn to be more creative. Always bear in mind that the major goal is love. So analyze your thoughts. Are they connected? Are they referring to love that comes from God, that helps us to heal, that helps us to develop well-being, integral health, or not? If not, change them. If they are already, reinforce, continue to think in that way. As we're coming to the end, in these brief moments, I would like really for you to reflect and understand that you bring the power within yourself as a thinking being to observe what you're thinking, to challenge it whenever it's necessary, and to restructure it, actualizing your thoughts. If you don't know how to do that, ask a friend, talk with someone, go into therapy, be part of a spiritual group of development, which helps also for you to understand that. The main purpose here is to help you to empower yourself from the essence of yourself. And I know that you can do that as long as you stand up for yourself and put the effort into that. In that way, we are coming to the end today. I do wish you much peace, and I hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.